All right, so we're waiting for live. Okay, guys, so take two. Sorry about that. So, hi, guys. Donnie Rouse here, founder of Rouse Coffee Company, host of the podcast One Life with Donnie Rouse, world traveler, and creator of the One Life Blueprint. Have you ever wanted to live a life that you were passionate about? Said differently, have you ever wanted to live a life where you woke up and every day felt full of meaning, where you were excited at the day ahead of you? And that's not to say that every day is going to be peaches and cream, but when you know the general direction, there is this certain pep in your step. But what happens? You start to you get stuck, right? There's not enough time to focus on the things you want to create the life that you want. Or maybe you feel like, well, that's not for me, that's for somebody else. Or maybe you don't know what it is that you want. And so sometimes life seems to get ahead of you. If you feel like for every one step forward, you take two steps back. If that is you, then I want you to just relax because I have been there too. And what I'm going to share with you is my personal story as well as what my breakthrough was. So there was a time in college where I thought I wanted to be a stockbroker. I had these aspirations and I was really driven by like the money, having the big house, the big car, and all of those fancy things. When in college, when I went to work at an investment bank, I was interning for 9 months and I quickly realized that that is not what I want. The problem arose when what I wanted was in direct conflict with what my family wanted, i.e., my father, and my girlfriend at the time. What I wanted was I wanted to pursue my passion for coffee and I wanted to travel the world and just experience things outside of the box of my life. When I shared those aspirations with my father and the girlfriend, there was kickback because both of them had these aspirations where they're like, you know what? Get married, work, buy a house, and have kids. Not necessarily all in that order. So when I shared my vision and what I wanted for my life, I was feeling very stressed and like there was a lot of tension because I was getting opposition from the people who loved me most. After I worked in investment banking, I went into a corporate finance, which was a fancy word for accounting. In accounting, I started to realize very quickly that this was not my place. I had searched the entire World Wide Web, and then I came to the point where I was like, is this all there is? I couldn't bear the thought of even being online anymore. And that's when I was like, all right, well, you know what? I need to do something differently. I need to start pursuing the things that are important to me. In my mind, my father was always telling me, he's like, hey, do the things that you need to do now, like work, save, and then at some point at the very end of your life somewhere, then go travel, then go open that cafe. It didn't make sense to me because I'm like, well, why would I wait? Because not a single moment is guaranteed. Like, why would I put off life for some later point when I'm not even sure if that later point is ever going to come? Why don't I do the things that bring me joy, live the life I want to live now? With this belief, I quit my job. And as a result of that, there was this constant tension between my father as well as between my girlfriend and I. My girlfriend had this list of things she wanted to do, and when that came in a conflict with what she wanted, never mind what I wanted, but what she wanted, all of a sudden now, their relationship started to crumble. To be honest with you, the relationship probably should have dissolved a few years earlier. But I had stayed in it longer than I needed to because she was everything I wanted on paper. And when I say what I wanted on paper, what I was conditioned to want on paper. When I had everything and then I realized that I wasn't happy, that like she fit the perfect picture, but I wasn't happy. Then, I knew that I needed to change. We ended up breaking up. I ended up going to Rome, Italy for 3 months. While I was there, I further fed my passion for coffee. When I came back, I was working jobs at minimum wage. I was waiting tables. I was working at coffee shops. High school kids were making more than me, and I had a college degree. My father thought I was throwing away my life, and it put so much pressure on me because I think most people, you want your parents to say those words, "I am proud of you." And I was not getting those words. So I pushed forward in feeling that bumping of heads with all the people around me. In 2009, I fell in love, the first love of my life. And having had that past experience, I realized that when we got on the topic of what we both wanted and what we would be doing had we not met, I realized that we were on different paths. We both wanted different things for our life. As a result of that, I ended up calling off the relationship. Days after that, I went into one of the lowest points of my entire life. I couldn't even think. I felt like I had no reason to live. I doubted everything. I doubted a purpose for life. I doubted God itself. I'm like, well, if there is no higher power, if there is no purpose, then what is the purpose? Is it just to fill one's own pocket, to do things, for one's own satisfaction? It wasn't a world that I wanted to live in. Thankfully, after that 3-day mark, I was like, okay, I believe there is a God. I believe there's a higher power and a greater purpose, right? So when I say it picked me up, I was probably, if you can imagine, the level of negative 100. It, brought me back up to 0, and now I was able to start building up again. But it was at that point that I started to do more personal work. I started to inquire about what kind of things I want. I started to look at how my mind was working and the beliefs and the blueprint that I was brought up I was raised in. As a result of going to these different seminars, different books, I noticed that there was a pattern. There was a pattern to how you felt more joy and satisfaction in life, as well as how you achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve that would bring that joy to your life. And I became aware that it is something that we do habitually, whether for the positive or for the negative, for the successes or for failures. We are always doing it. And as a result of that, I formulated my own framework on how to get clear about what I wanted, to have that driving passion, and to move forward at full steam ahead. Not to say that there aren't some roadblocks along the way, but to move forward with it and know that this is the path that is aligned with me. During this time, what I realized was that conflict I had felt in the beginning with my father had dissipated. Now he is fully approves of everything because, sometimes as people around you, the things you want, they want the best for you. Right? But they don't know what is the best for you because they're coming from their frame of mind. Only you know what is right for you. And it takes time for those people to catch up. When you start getting the result, when you start showing the results for your, the joy, making paces and steps towards that life, then they're like, oh, okay. And then you have their support. But at this point now, I didn't need it. So I was going towards life, pursuing my coffee company, traveling the world, and sharing what I like to share, inspiration for people to live their one life. And the framework is something I want to share with you today. So let's go over that framework. So first, let's talk about a blueprint. What is a blueprint? I have the definition right here. It is a plan outlining the specifics for a complex undertaking. In this case, the complex undertaking is your life. And what the blueprint does is it aims to simplify, right? So you have this complex thing called your life, right? It's not just all right, I'm alive and I'm pursuing these different things. There's different facets of your life. You have your health, you have your emotional health, your intellectual well-being, you have your spirituality, you have your contribution, spirituality, there's your relationships, all of these different components. And without a system to organize them, they're just scattered all over there. I mean, like one day you're here, next day you're there, and there's no conscious focus on how to move each one of those forward. So the step one in the framework is first understanding, what are the categories of my life? Like, what are the areas of my life that constantly need focus? These, I gave you some of them just now. Your health, your emotional health, intellectual, quality of life or life experiences. I like life experiences. That jazzes me up a little bit more. Spirituality, relationships, your love life. They can be whatever you want them to be. The second step is to start doing some accounting. And I'm not talking about your checkbook. I'm talking about your accounting on your day-to-day activities, your day-to-day thoughts, your day-to-day patterns. An example of this is to say, like, oh, God, there's no time. But in doing an accounting, you can quickly see, well, you know what? I didn't need to spend, like those 3 hours on Instagram. Oh, I mean, those reels were pretty entertaining. I laughed a little bit, but yeah, I didn't need to spend 3 hours of my life on a reel, So what the accounting does is it just shines a spotlight on the actions. This way, if you see how you're spending your time, this way you can get more time. But more importantly, the patterns, the ways of thinking, the things that are actually moving you towards or away from your desired vision. Secondly, the vision, right? The vision this is like the big picture. This is like where you add the color of life, right? And when you think about a picture, you want to plan it years out. So this way you're working towards something. And what it does by having a big vision is it creates a pull. So rather than reacting to the world around you, having something that you see out in the future that is compelling to you, it is like being pulled toward there. Now all of a sudden there is desire because you're working towards something. And when you're developing your vision, one of the best things to do is, one, to involve the senses. Involve the senses. What would it smell like? What things would you see? What would you hear? What kind of people would be around you? All these things add further detail to your vision, or we won't even call it a picture. A picture is just a great way of giving you a symbol, but it's more like a motion picture, your vision. And then always questions. So when we're looking at our vision, the more questions we ask, the more specific we will get. The more specific we get, the more emotion we will feel, right? Because it is all about feeling more emotion, right? Isn't that why you're going after anything you're going after in life? You're doing it because you want to feel an emotion. You want $1 million. Why do you want $1 million? You want it so this way you could buy the house and invite your entire friends and family there and just feel happy and joyful because all the people you love are in one place, right? So it's not necessarily the thing we're going after, but the feelings that we want from it. Let's go to the next step, purpose. This is the most important part, and I just gave you the answer. Your purpose is your reason for going after the thing you want to go after. And I hinted at it before, saying the reason the purpose is so important is because it's like the glue, right? You have this picture, but yet, you can touch the picture, but the glue is like that adhesive that's on your hand that when you touch it, all of a sudden, now you're stuck to it. These are all the reasons why you want it. And the more powerful, the more compelling those reasons, the more likely you will follow through. There is a quote that says, the person with a big enough why can overcome any how. So it's extremely important when you're developing your purpose, not just to let it be about you, but to include other people. An example of this could be like, all right, well, I want to have a vacation home. And this is one of my personal ones I'll give you. I want to have vacation homes, or I want to like rent spaces around the world because I want to live everywhere in the world. Like not everywhere, you know what I mean? But like several places I want to live in the world. And I want to have a space where I have like extra bedrooms. And well, why, Donnie? Why is that? Because then I get to invite friends over, family. I get to see my friends multiple times a year, have laughs, be generous, share my abundance with them. All of a sudden now all these reasons, like just having the fancy place in Madeira, Portugal, which is one of my favorite places, it's not compelling enough. But now the thought of having my friends from all around the world I've met throughout all my travels have a free stay with me while I'm there, or maybe even just gifting it to one of my family members and letting them enjoy it. Like that is purpose for me. That really, really jazzes me up. So purpose is extremely important. So let's go to the next step. So we said, okay, we did an accountability. We just kind of did this accounting of our life. Mainly, we want to see where we're spending our time. We created vision. We have the purpose. Now let's look at belief systems. Like, what are your belief systems around what it is you want? And I'll give you a hint here. As you're looking at this vision statement, as you're looking at the purpose, your beliefs are going to make themselves apparent to you, right? All of those reasons why you can't have and what you believe about what it is you want are literally going to start jumping out and screaming. That's good, right? The good thing is that they're making themselves known, and the only thing that you have to remember is that this is just programming. This is just your old blueprint making itself known, and you could only make changes when you are conscious of it. So applaud. Be grateful that those beliefs are showing their dirty little heads. But in the section of beliefs, we say, okay, we look at the vision and say, all right, well, what kind of beliefs do we need to have in order to attain that vision we have? Another way of looking at this is to look at someone who's achieved what you want. And what you do is you say, okay, if I were this person, what would my belief systems need to be? And from there, then you start to create your action plan, which brings us to the next step, the strategy or the steps. So in the strategy now, when we're looking at strategy, we are thinking like, all right, well, if this is what we want, what are the steps that will move us in that direction? And a lot of those steps are literally going to be like common sense, right? But common sense is not always common practice. One of my favorite mentors is coined for saying. So you write down, we look at the belief system, we look at the goal we want and say, hey, how are we going to get there? And then we devise a plan, how to start moving in that direction. But not all steps or not all strategies are created equal, right? There are certain strategies that when you put those strategies in place, they are going to move you forward faster. And as a result, you'll start getting more results as well as you'll start feeling good, right? It's going to start becoming part of your identity. The other thing I want to note here is that small steps, right? You could take some big steps. Sometimes it's what I call committed action, where you burn the bridge and you take the giant step and now you're committed to it. But for all intents and purposes, you only need small steps, right? A small steps compound, right? If you drink a gallon of coffee a day and you're like, you know what? I'm going to just drink 1 cup of coffee and start drinking water. If you start drinking a gallon of water a day, you're going to feel like a balloon. And you might give up and you're like, you know what? I'm going back to coffee because at least, I felt like, fluids going in and out. I don't know. The point is, start small steps, because these small steps that you take will compound and eventually you'll build momentum. And now it just becomes second nature. And then building on that new habit will become easy. And then soon you will be at that goal. Which brings me to the next step, goals. So as I mentioned before, it's not, it's about living life now, right? We don't want to just work towards something where we're not enjoying it. We want to enjoy the process. This is where goals come in. Like, what are the goals that would excite you, but not only just excite you, but they would move you forward towards the person you want to become, towards that life vision. This is where you brainstorm those goals. And the awesome thing about these goals is that in order to achieve them, you have to change who you are. You have to come up with a whole set of action steps. But what it's not doing is leaving life in the background somewhere. I'll give you one example of this, like my identity as a world traveler. So being a world traveler, right, means I got to travel the world. This is one of my life experiences category. Like, I want to see every country in the world. No bullshit, every country. And so in order to do that, I have to see every country. I've got to make multiple trips, right? I've got to see at least like 4 or 5 countries a year. And even if I was just starting out, if I booked that first year, all of a sudden I'm like, all right, visit A, B, and C. Now all of a sudden, what identity do you think I've just given myself? World traveler. Right? Now that it's a part of my identity, action becomes easy. So you want to choose things that light you up, but that'll also give you an identity. And that leads me into the next step, identity. Who is it that you want? Who is it that you are going to be becoming as a result of this vision? So as I mentioned with quality of life, one of the identities would be a world traveler. I am a world traveler, but that is one of the things that drives me when I am thinking in the mode of a world traveler. Now all of a sudden there's a different hat that comes off, right? And that goes on. Now when I'm looking at traveling the world, how I bring myself into that planning process and making those decisions changes, right? Versus if I were stuck in Donnie, the founder of Rouse Coffee Company, right? I'm like, if I was wearing that hat, I'm like, I don't know. I can't make time. I have no time, right? Because I'm busy trying to build this vision for my business. But once I change the hat, once I put on a new identity, now all of a sudden I start to open up a different way of thinking. And I use this as your life experiences. And you could say something like a surfer, right? I am a surfer. Well, you could open that. Well, what's the identity of a surfer? You think of someone like laid back, just taking life, enjoying, being present. With the identity comes a whole bunch of beliefs, but also a different way of thinking. So when we create the identity around a category of our life, now all of a sudden we step into the identity, and it doesn't necessarily mean we have to be at that vision. It just gives us a way of accessing different information, so this way we can move forward in more congruence. And lastly, we kind of cover this action. So we did the strategy, right? We created goals. We came up with identity. The last part is action. You have to move your feet, right? It's great to plan and have this beautiful vision board on your wall, but if you're not moving towards it, then what are you doing, right? There's no way you could sit there and dream, but then after a while, you start to lose confidence in yourself and your ability to do it. And if that is where you are, I want you to know that can change in an instant with action. Action creates momentum. Action creates new identity. By moving towards, all of a sudden you start to get momentum, you start to feel more confident, and you start to take more steps. I had mentioned before that one of the things I like to do with action, I like to take committed action. And committed action simply means you burn the bridge. You leave no other way out. When I think of the results that I've gotten in some of the areas of my life where I'm most proud of, it's been because of this. I've made a decision to do something, and I made it in a way that there's no turning back. And as a result of that no turning back, I'm just like, okay, blinders on, forward we go. So that is one of the most powerful ways to do it. And again, the action, the most important part of the action is to take the action, but not always seeing the next step. Sometimes you could only see the next step. You can't see that. You have your vision statement, right? But the distance between the two sometimes is so far where you might feel lost. So in cases like that, you don't need to see the entire map bringing you to that destination. The only thing you need to do is see the next step. When you take that step, the next step will reveal itself. And then life has just this beautiful way of unfolding. So we went over the framework. I will give you just a way of remembering the framework that makes it easy. And let's see. And it is, hold on, let me just get that for you. A very playful bunny swings gracefully in air. All right, we got it all there. A, accounting. V is your vision. P is your purpose. B, the bunny, is your belief system. S is your strategy. G is your goals. I is your identity. And A is your action. So here is what I dare you to do. I dare you to make a video. Let's get this into our bodies, right? Let's show up for ourselves. Let's make the decision and the declaration that we are going to create the lives of our dreams, and we are not willing to settle for anything other than that. In a video, I want you to tell me, what does your ideal life look like? And why do you want it? Like, give me all the reasons why. And again, don't be perfect, right? Just get in the habit of taking imperfect action. Imperfect action is always perfect. So again, what is it? What is the grand vision for your life? We're not going to go into different categories, but the grand vision. Why do you want that so bad? Why is it a must? And then the last part of that is, what are the feelings you're going to get once you achieve that? This is the magical part. Is the last thing I just mentioned, is the feelings, because this is the reason. And if you could feel that, then you could create and become it. Once you have shared that live, do it via Instagram, or if you don't have Instagram, do it some other social media platform. But send me the link at live@donnyraus.com. live@DONNYRAUS.com. I want to see these, and I want to applaud you for taking action. And that is really all there is to this video. Please share this video with 5 people and hit that like button. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, please put it in the comment section of this video. So in closing, remember, you only get one life. So live fully, live passionately, and live now. God bless, and I will see you soon.